April, your Net Democracy and Governance program is going to the Sahel. We will focus on Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and other West African countries, including Benin, Togo, Nigeria, and the Gambia. Bolder conversations, real voices, inclusive discussions. Let's talk democracy. Let's talk governance. Let's talk your truth. Citizens Are Season 2 in partnership with the National Endowment for Democracy NET on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar.
Hello and welcome to Citizens Hour, WADR's flagship democracy and governance program, coming to you live on 94.9 FM in Dakar and online at wadr.org. We are also streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. I am Veronica Njai. This version of Citizens Hour is supported by the National Endowment for Democracy NET and comes to you live every second and last Saturday of the month. Now, across West Africa, women are often described as the greatest victims of conflict. They are displaced from their homes, separated from their families, subjected to violence, and left to care for children and entire households in the aftermath of war. But that's only a part of the story. Across the region, women are also leading reconciliation efforts, mediating community disputes, supporting survivors, preserving social cohesion, and helping societies recover from conflict. So today we ask, why are women still viewed primarily as victims rather than as peace builders? What roles are women playing in preventing conflict and rebuilding communities? And what needs to change to ensure women are fully included in peace and security processes across the region? To help us explore these questions, we are joined by our two distinguished guests, Henrietta Ikediashi, and she is a forerunner of the Solution Nest Education Initiative, where she works to empower women and young people through education, peace building, and community development. We're also joined by Mamadou Goita, who is the Executive Director of the Institute for Research and Promotion of Alternatives for Development in Mali. He has sensitive experience in governance, conflict prevention, social cohesion, and sustainable development across the Sahel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Veronica. It's a pleasure being here.
All right, great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So you can also join the conversation by sending your messages and reaction on WhatsApp on +221 781 845421. And yes, to begin the conversation, I will start with you, Mamadou Goita. What is your view of women in conflict regarding the roles that they play?
Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks for this question. That is a very important one. When we talk about women in conflicts, you have to look at it in two ways. That the role that women are playing first in preventing, but also contributing to the resolution of conflict. Probably will come down on that, but also the impact of conflict on women in different ways. Because if you look at the environment of crisis zones, women are those who are more affected by conflict by any other people in these regions. So we need to look at it in two ways: how they are affected, but also how they are affected by what is happening, but also how the role that they are playing in trying to find solutions, but also to prevent what is happening.
Great start there, Mr. Goita. But now, Henrietta, I'll move to you. Similar question. What is your view of women in conflict regarding the roles that they play?
All right. Thank you very much, Veronica, for this. I would say that the roles women play in conflict is really enormous. Unfortunately, society doesn't really see it. It's easy to focus on women as victims in conflict because a crying face makes a very quick headline, and it brings sympathy. Look at the instance of the case in Oyo State where children and their teachers were kidnapped. And these bandits kept pushing the face of a woman, which brought about global outcry. And true to the whole thing, because they are really very strategic, it worked. And we thank God that, these people were eventually released and brought back to safety. But, I would say that it paints only half the picture. Bringing in women as poster women paints only half the picture. While women suffer greatly in conflict, they are also the ones keeping communities together when everything else breaks down, And then the saying goes that women, when you teach a woman, you teach a nation. And when you protect a woman, you save the community. So women should be put in the fore. They shouldn't be heard. They would always say women should be seen and not heard. This time around, women should be seen because they play a vital role. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Henrietta. That was a very great contribution. Obviously, talking about the fact that mostly women are just seen as victims, but the efforts that women put when it comes to peace building, mediation, is not really recognized. Now, let's take this first report. In Mali, and as security continues to affect communities across the country, women are emerging as some of the country's most effective peacemakers. They mediate local disputes, bring divided communities together, and help preserve social cohesion in areas where violence and mistrust have taken a deep toll. Yet, while their contribution is widely acknowledged at the community level, they remain largely absent from formal peace building and conflict resolution mechanisms where key decisions about security and reconciliations are made. Abamako correspondent Ali Cham's report presented by Augustine Bilkoli.
On est tout originaire du Mali, que vous voyez, les gens sont obligés d'être là.
At Segu, Fatou Doukouri is among a growing number of women who have turned their personal experiences of insecurity into a commitment to peace building. Having witnessed the impact of violence on families and communities, she believes women should no longer be seen only as victims of conflict, but as active participants in finding solutions.
In my region today, insecurity has become a major obstacle. Even traveling to the local market is filled with uncertainty and fear. As a woman, I rely on income-generating activities to support my family. But even when I go to work on my tomato or okra farm, I am constantly worried. I keep asking myself, will I make it back home safely?
For this retired woman, women bring unique strengths to mediation efforts. Their close relationship with families, knowledge of local realities, and ability to listen often allow them to open channels of dialogue where other initiatives struggle.
Women must be involved at every stage of the peace process. I always say their role begins at the start and remains essential until the very end. Whether it is reconciliation or community mobilization, women are at the forefront, especially in our region. And when it comes to reconciliation, if women are not fully involved, those efforts are unlikely to succeed. Even within the regional reconciliation team in Mali's 4th region, women continue to play a central role.
Across several regions of Mali, women are involved in resolving community disputes, including family conflicts, land disagreements, and tensions between farmers and herders. In Sikasso, one woman leader says mediation efforts involving women and other community actors have helped restore dialogue in several villages.
We are doing everything we can. Whenever disputes arise, we step in to help calm tensions and encourage dialogue. We have also worked to address community conflicts with the support from WANEP, which funded awareness campaigns, training for women, and community dialogue sessions. I believe these efforts are making real difference and are beginning to bear fruit.
For many observers, increasing women's participation in mediation is no longer only a matter of inclusion, but also a question of effectiveness. Mukhtar Traoré, a community leader in San, says women should have a stronger role in local conflict prevention structures.
Women are at the heart of conflict resolution. When we talk about women, we are talking about people who bring many different strengths, whether the conflict is between communities or even between neighborhoods. Women are often the one who best understand the roots of the problem and can find solutions. They should never be underestimated or pushed aside. Too often, people dismiss them by saying she's just a woman. But women have enormous values. They should not be overlooked. They should be fully involved.
Security expert Sumaila La shares a similar view, calling for their inclusion at every stage of peace efforts.
Women have always played a vital role in peace building, even if that role has often been informal rather than officially recognized. They have consistently been consulted, their opinions sought, and in many communities, women have taken the initiative to promote constructive dialogue. Their efforts have helped reconcile people who were divided or deeply mistrustful of one another. These initiatives deserve greater recognition and support. Today, a number of national, local, and regional programs led by the authorities with support from development partners are working to strengthen women's capacity in conflict resolution and mediation.
Despite ongoing challenges, women involved in mediation say their work is producing positive results, with several disputes resolved through dialogue rather than violence. They, however, insist that their contribution could be strengthened through better support, training, and greater representation in decision-making bodies.
All right, that was a report by our Bamako correspondent Aliu Cham, presented by Augustine Bill Coley. Mr. Goita, I'll bring you in. One of the striking messages of the report is that women are successfully mediating conflicts within communities, but they remain largely absent from national peace negotiation and security decision-making. Why does this disconnect persist, in your view?
Yeah, there are many reasons for that. We know that we are in a patriarchal society, and women's role been considered for many of some activities like backyard contribution that men have to ask women in the room, but not in the courtyard. This is in most of the cultures, particularly in Mali, but also in many of the Sahel countries, the practice that people have. So bringing women in a space where men are sitting to discuss about conflict is something that is culturally not used for many of this. So this is one of the reasons. It's a cultural practice that has been impacting also the way that women are involved in this negotiation. That is on the courtyard, how we call it, because this is where you have different power relations that has built to solutions. So for many cases, this is the case. But also there is another reason. Usually women contribution are not that visible in the sense that if you look at the official negotiation processes, many will just look at women as those who don't have this capacity of negotiation. And this is the reason why they say that if you, because I've been working on this issue for a long time in the past, many will tell you that if you bring them, feeling that they have it, they will be more sentimental than objectives in the discussion. So being part of the, in the side of one of the opponent will be, what will be very likely thing that will happen. There are so many reasons that we can mention. And this is why also most of these negotiations are failing, because those who are really in a position to negotiate not only peace building, but also to look at the impact, the inside impact of the conflicts are these women, and most of them are very strong capacity of bringing, men to understand key challenges behind the conflict area. We just say that women are, as it has been said in your this report, that they have a very, very important role they play, but it's really informally and non-formally in the conflict resolution, but in the official ways, it's always difficult. But in some cases, there have been some measures. In the case of Mali, for instance, when the negotiation started in Algeria, to some extent, they have been asking just to bring more women on board, and this is the reason why I've been asked myself to look at some women who will be really relevant for this negotiation. And I've been proposing 17 names to show them that there are many, many women that I came across them, that have been working on this conflict issue. They have been doing fantastic job in the region. They have been brought online, and some of them have been involved in the Ministry of Negotiation of a reconciliation, and then have been taking part of in this negotiation. And some of them have become parliamentarian later on, just to show you that things have changed a bit. But this is really some of the key issue, key causes, that people don't look at, but it's linked to the culture. It's linked also to the patriarchal way of looking at these issues of negotiation in building, even in conflict prevention.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Goita. Henrietta, I'll bring you in. You heard from Mr. Goita. He did name some of the issues which also deals or has something to do with culture and the way women are perceived. In your opinion, what does this tell us about the way peace building is approached in West Africa?
I would say that in West Africa, the mentality we have is, seeing men being measured with the weapons, the guns they carry. But for women, they are full of wisdom. A woman measures peace or security by whether her children can walk to school safely and whether there is food on the table. So this shift really has to be put in place for people to really understand what exactly it's all about. If we take, for instance, a strong and biblical example of a wise woman, the Bible talks about a woman of Abel, Beth-Maachah, in the book of Samuel. This woman noticed the danger closing in on her city. The moment she noticed this danger, she stepped forward to negotiate directly with Joab, using wisdom rather than weapons to spare her entire community from destruction. Now, in the same way, women who live closest to daily realities of the home and the market are often the first ones, to notice early warning signs of trouble. They see when there are pocket groups of discussions. They see when trouble is brewing. They see, the sudden hike in prices. They see unusual movements. They know when strangers come into a place or when young people quietly disappear from home, even long before violence actually erupts. So I think women should not be relegated to the background, because there's something called the maternal radar. A woman naturally has that instinct. The instinct of a woman has never misled her. That's why some men would say, my wife is a witch. And some communities will say, a certain woman like this predicted XYZ, but we took it for granted. So women should really be taken seriously in everything they say, especially when it comes to peace building and mediation.
All right.
Can I add something?
Yes, you can.
I'm sorry, just to tell you, there is a very, very interesting example that we have been experiencing because I've been supporting this organization, Women of the Mano River, the Mano River Women Network, that was led by Saran Daraba from Guinea. How the peace building started between Guinea, Sierra Leone. It was a very hot period. It's women that went to visit the two head of states separately. Women, because there was a strong conflict between the two countries because of some reason that I won't come back on that. They obliged the president to say, we won't leave your palace if you don't agree to talk to your counterpart in the other country. They have been saying that to both head of states, and finally they decided to open the door for peace building. And this has been very instrumental in creating conditions between Sierra Leone and Guinea at that time. But it went beyond that to create a network, and even it became an agency that was in charge of preventing conflict, but also working on development issues, meaning that women, when they have a floor, they have a space to discuss about peace building, to discuss about conflict prevention. This is the where you can see the relevancy of just involving them in that. But beside this example that happened in the country, you can see that some of the conflict in the region didn't take stock of what happened that period, but they continue just to deny, the relevancy and the importance of women being at the heart of the peace building processes in different countries. So I wanted to highlight that just to show that there have been examples in this region, in West Africa, an example that should be at the heart of our own experiences that are happening actually in this region, but it's not the case.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Goita. That was very relevant. Also, I did like the example that Henrietta brought in regarding the fact that women are the first to notice suspicious behavior, because this report that we are about to play from Burkina Faso clearly highlights this. Now, in Burkina, women are among those paying the highest price for the country's worsening security crisis. They make up the majority of people displaced by terrorist violence, losing homes, livelihoods, and their loved ones. Yet, even as they endure the consequences of this conflict, many are stepping forward as community leaders, supporting displaced families, promoting dialogue, and helping rebuild social cohesion. In this report, our correspondent Martin Kaba traveled to the town of Banfora and Gaoua to meet women, proving they are not only victims, but they are also powerful agents of peace and resilience. This report is voiced by Ousmane Umar.
My message to all women in Burkina Faso and around the world is that I encourage them to keep fighting.
Bienta Some is one of the many internally displaced women now living in Gaoua, in Burkina Faso's southwest region. She has been there since May 2023 after fleeing Jigwe, a locality frequently targeted by armed terrorist groups. At the center where she now lives, Bienta is learning traditional weaving to earn a living and provide for her basic needs.
We fled and came here, but there is no work. We said that we would come and ask for help, and that is how this activity was offered to us. It is to learn how to weave traditional cloth. For now, we do not know what it will bring us or how much it will earn us. In any case, we truly need assistance. We are asking for support because the situation is not easy.
The center mainly supports internally displaced women. According to humanitarian organizations, women and children have been the biggest victims of the insecurity that has gripped Burkina Faso since 2015. But beyond surviving the conflict, many women have also become active contributors to peace building. In Banfora, in the western part of the country, the Association of Women Teachers for a Flourishing Society is working to resolve conflicts within communities affected by the crisis. Its president, Mariam Maiga, explains.
To resolve conflicts, we first conduct community consultations. These community consultations are aimed at identifying the needs of the communities, understanding the local contexts, and determining the types of conflicts that exist in the different localities. This is important because unless we fully understand the various conflicts and their underlying dynamics, we cannot effectively resolve them.
The association's approach begins with conciliation, followed by mediation, and finally the signing of a peace agreement between the parties involved. According to the organization, this method has helped to resolve several community disputes, including tensions between internally displaced people and their host communities.
In one community, whose name I prefer not to disclose, there was a conflict over access to water. This community also hosts a large number of internally displaced persons. As is often the case, not everyone in the host community is willing to show solidarity with those who have been displaced. It was a woman who was a member of the local committee who informed us about the situation. We then organized a meeting to explain to the community that these displaced people did not choose to be in such circumstances and that the same situation could happen to anyone.
Women are also contributing through education and awareness raising. Back in Gawa, the Association for the Promotion of Education of Girls, established in 2022, is working with women and families to promote peaceful coexistence. Its president, Bridget Some, who is also a school teacher, explains the association's work.
We have made it our priority to educate our children so that they are not drawn into or tempted to become people who can be recruited by terrorist groups. We educate them to recognize and take advantage of the opportunities currently being provided by the government so that they can earn a living through their own work rather than being lured into extremism.
Through regular meetings with women, the association encourages peaceful values and community responsibility. It also raises awareness about the importance of reporting suspicious individuals or activities that could threaten community security.
I remember once when I was traveling on the road between Djibugu and Gawa. I saw a group of 6 motorcycles with people dressed in a strange manner. I took out my phone and reported it to one of the regional authorities. The person told me that they would pass the information on to the relevant authorities because you never know what might happen.
Despite these efforts, many women believe they are still not sufficiently involved in local peace and conflict resolution processes. According to His Majesty Ajuma II, a traditional chief from the Cascades region, cultural and traditional norms continue to limit women's participation in decision-making.
I can assure you that in our society, women do not play much of a role in conflict resolution. It depends on their position. For example, a woman may belong to a family or a group that is involved in a conflict, and in that context, she can influence the decision or the situation by offering advice within her own family or group. However, within formal conflict resolution committees, she does not have a role to play.
Across Burkina Faso, women continue to pay one of the highest prices for insecurity. Yet, from displacement centers to community mediation initiatives, they are proving that they are not only victims of conflict, but also indispensable actors in building peace. Their message is clear. Lasting peace cannot be achieved without women's voices at the decision-making table.
All right, that was a report by Burkina Faso correspondent Martin Kaban, presented by Usman Umar. Henrietta, I'll bring you in now. What is the most striking part of the report for you?
The most striking part of this report is the role women play going through what they played in Burkina Faso.
All right. Henrietta is experiencing some problems with the network, but now I'll bring you in, Mr. Goita. Mr. Goita, are you there?
Yes.
All right. So the same question to you. What is the most striking part of the report for you?
Yeah, there are different things that have been said in this report that are very, very important. This is how education can be a key starting point just for not only those who are fighting today, but for the new generation to have another perception of what is really the trajectory that a woman should have. Women should have just to create not only conditions for their families, but also to build peace within the community. So this is really talking about the reason why this organization have been focusing on girls' education is something that means a lot for me. If you look at how many of the groups, the armed groups have been recruiting young people, men and women, because people don't know that there are also many young women. Some are being kidnapped, but others have also joined for some reasons, that because those who are cooking for them, they are doing some of the things that we have been interviewing some of them that have been running away after realizing that they were in the wrong way. So just bringing education to these girls so that they can know what they are engaging in and how they can escape from that is very important. And another point is how women are contributing, to keep the economic assets of the community and how they are working to create conditions in a very harsh condition environment, just to create conditions for their family to continue to hope that this crisis will just end up, and also they will have an opportunity to continue to work on their assets. So these are really things that mean a lot for me, saying that women also they are fighting not with guns, but also with the economic potentialities, the economic opportunities, but the economic background that they have also to prevent, and also fight against insecurity in their communities.
Mr. Goita, I did appreciate the fact that you brought about the issue of education. Obviously, we've seen that from the reports, we can tell that women are really helping when it comes to peace building and conflict resolution in their communities. But in as much as this is the case, we also cannot dismiss the fact that women are also victims in these situations. What type of support do you think is critical for the women who are victims in this circumstance? I know you did bring about the issue of education, but aside educating them, what do you think should be done for these women?
There is a lot that needs to be done. People are focusing on the economic support, but these women need the psychological support first, because it's a very traumatizing for a woman looking at your husband or your neighbors or your children dying because of some of these silly things that some people are doing, and most of the cases you don't even know why. So this support, knowing that there is a government behind, there are communities behind, there are other people behind, is really the first thing I think is very important for these women. So this is something that is very important. The second thing is that because conflicts will bring people to lose their asset, and one of these in Sahel countries particularly is about land and also the natural resources. So the support should be also in a sustainable way to support them to access to this to land, to access to resources that can help them to work on this land. And this is more likely the equipment, but also some of the technical support, meaning that they know they have to learn also how, with some of the production techniques and technology, they can also improve what they are doing to create conditions for that. So there is a support that can be psychological first. For me, it's very important to know that there is a social support. All the communities are supporting what they are doing and recognizing it. And secondly, there is a material support that will be materialized by accessing to resources for production, but also for resources to move forward. And education, as I mentioned, is really at upstream and downstream, all those things that I've been saying, to be more receptive to some of these capacities, but also to be open, to contribute also to the economic, social, and political growth of a community. Because the political side, how they can be involved in decision making, looking the opportunity of a conflict, because conflict also is a learning process that need to be also highlighted during support for women, how to replace them in the right place for contributing to prevention and management of conflict that are arising in the region.
We're about to cross over to Nigeria, but before we leave the Sahel, Mr. Goita, what should be the first priority for governments in the Sahel when it comes to strengthening women-led peace initiatives? Because there are a lot of women groups in the Sahel trying to mediate efforts. But what should be the policy recommendations that you feel should be put in place to ensure that women in the Sahel are strengthened when it comes to these initiatives?
Yeah, the first thing is that to recognize these organizations as because in most of the the legal instrument that we have, recognizing women organizations as key players in the mediation is not obvious. So this is something that needs to be done. And secondly, to support them in the governance level, but also with resources that can allow them to play their role, meaning that they need some resources just to move, also to learn, to socialize what they know with other women, sensitization and other things. So for me, it's the political support is just to recognize it in the local instrument and to make it as compulsory for all the negotiation processes that women should be at that level, and they need to be also lead some of the negotiation. And secondly, the resources that are needed, so that organization that they are working in can be really operational, but also doing finding solutions with their own the resources that they are mobilizing vis-a-vis the peace building processes at the government level. You look at even the case of most of these countries in Sahel, we have now ministries of reconciliation. There are many women operating there, but they are doing secondary roles usually, and supporting women organizations to do the work that some of the officially integrated in the ministries is a key challenge for many of them. They need support because they don't have resources, and the squeezing of citizen space also is very threatening for most of them. How they can play this role if they are not politically recognized and also protected against the violation of their rights in the context of property. So these are some of the things I think that politically government should protect them with a legal instrument, but also support in the way that they will be more operational to do this work that is really important for our society's action.
Very insightful. But now we leave the Sahel and cross over to Nigeria. And for many women in Nigeria's conflict-affected communities, the hardest part begins after the violence subsides. Having lost loved ones, homes and livelihoods, they now shoulder the responsibility of rebuilding families, supporting survivors and helping fractured communities. Their story revealed that while women are often the greatest victims on conflict, they are also among the strongest agents of peace. This is a report by our correspondent in Abuja, Yechenu Sasitu.
Favor, brother, I know the pain. I see how on the video you head on to Ayuba.
When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu spoke to the mother of Ayuba, who died in the Angon-Rukuba attack, the exchange reflects the pain left behind by violence. A mother mourning her son, a family forced to face a future changed by conflict. The attack may have ended, but the work of rebuilding begins after the violence. Across communities affected by conflict, women are often left to care for families, rebuild livelihoods, and help restore relationships fractured by violence. Some are choosing to do more than survive. They are stepping forward as mediators.
Clashes here and there between communities, you find out that the woman has no voice in the community. Before, they were not doing things with women. It's only the men that were handled, where they were covered, they were carried along the community. We are now enlightened, and we are looking at the future brighter than it used to be. We didn't go to the community to confront the men. We went to mobilize them as collaborators. A lot of the men feel that, so we wasted all these years. We were losing, we didn't know. We didn't know our women have this potential.
Their interventions may not make national headlines, but in their communities, women are helping resolve disputes, bring people together, and prevent disagreements from escalating into violence.
So what we did, with the help of UN Women, they came alongside and funded us. They far exceeded our expectation. So what we set out to do was to strengthen the capacity of women in leadership, especially in the area of decision-making and peace negotiations for, last and durable peace in their communities.
Executive Director of Gender Awareness Trust, Lydia Umar, says the contribution of women to peace building must be recognized through greater inclusion in decision-making and peace processes.
Inclusiveness in building peace cannot be overemphasized because no one group can do it alone. Not the military, not the police, not the government, not traditional rulers, not even religious leaders. We all need each other. We need to put our hands together.
Inclusion gives women a voice, but sustainable peace also depends on what happens after the mediation ends. Tina King says empowering women and educating children can help communities break cycles of violence and create a more peaceful future.
We took our program there to empower them in bid making, and also we help them with initial package for them to start to initiate their own business. When you impact the mothers, it helps the children to be in school.
Education gives children more choices. Economic empowerment gives women greater independence. Together, they can strengthen families and reduce some of the vulnerabilities that allow conflict to take root. The United Nations says women must be seen not only as victims of conflict, but as essential partners in building peace. UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed has spoken about the importance of women's participation in peace building and decision-making.
Resolution 1325 recognized a truth that women everywhere had long known. Peace cannot be built or sustained without their leadership.
That role is also highlighted by President of the UN General Assembly, Annalena Baerbock.
Women are peacekeepers, women are decision makers, women are legislators, women are arbitrators and mediators, healers and storytellers.
The stories of women mediators show that peace building does not always begin in a negotiation room. Sometimes it begins with a conversation between neighbors, a woman bringing people together before a disagreement becomes a crisis. A mother educating her children to choose dialogue over violence. A community leader helping families recover and rebuild trust.
With humanity balanced, be seen through the same old lens. You are called woman.
The cost of conflict may fall heavily on women, but women are also proving that they can be part of the solution. Their voices, experiences, and leadership can help communities move from surviving violence to building lasting peace.
I'm just inspired by all of the women and their force and their strength. Like, that's so amazing. I'm like, sometimes I wonder how come we have such great women.
For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja.
All right, that was a report by Yechenu Sasitu, our correspondent in Abuja. Henrietta, I'll bring you in. Gorta spoke about education, and the report in Nigeria basically looks at the role that women are playing. So what role can education play in preventing further or future violence and building more peaceful communities?
All right. Education functions as essential social infrastructure, during conflict. When schools close, communities lose their primary stabilizing structure, and children are left exposed to exploitation. They are also left exposed to early marriage and are being recruited into violence. But, you know, beyond academic learning, a secure school offers physical protection. So education should offer physical protection. It should offer psychosocial support. And then it should offer a sense of community that holds children steady, even when everything around them is uncertain. Education plays a very important role in this. In some parts of the region now, we have internally displaced camps. And good enough, we also have people who are coming out as volunteers to support. When education comes in place, it kind of tackles post-trauma. You know, it comes in as therapy in community, in schools. It offers protection. Then when we design inclusive trauma-sensitive learning spaces, what we then do is to teach critical thinking. You don't just think, but it brings about critical thinking. You think beyond the box, and then you ease behavioral tension. Beyond every war, the end of it always has a lot of escalations. But when this comes in place, you know, behavioral challenges like the negative ones are being handled.
All right.
We teach critical thinking.
Okay.
Yes, behavioral tensions are being handled, and then we build a kind of civic resilience that outlast any single crisis.
Okay, thank you very much, Henrietta. Goita, I'll bring you in now. You did speak about psychosocial support and education and things that women would require aside just the economic aspect of it. But then let's look at the economic aspect of it, Mr. Goita. How important is women's economic empowerment in reducing future conflicts and strengthening long-term stability?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, this is really something that people are not looking at because why actually these conflicts are really exacerbated is because of the economic reasons, you know. Because if you look at most of the young people who has been really recruited within, most of them will give this reason why they are integrating this group. But also, if you look at the way that this conflict started, it's about also, you know, resources management, the governance around these resources. There is a nexus between, you know, the conflict and the natural resources management and climate change. And it has been demonstrated by many researchers that this is really something that is happening actually. So finding a solution to this problem will be really resolving a lot of the conflict, and particularly for women economic empowerment. And it goes from accessing to, as I mentioned earlier, to resources for production. This is land, water, and all the seeds and the like, but also to some extent to the way they can really contribute, you know, to develop their own economic activities within the community. So that will create condition for many different economic agents in the area just to access to some extent to some resources. Because if you look at the impact of the conflict on the economic development of most of the countries, you will see that because women's role has been reduced, you know, just to observing what is happening and contributing only to feed the population, to feed their families, and that's it. But the growth, you know, of the economic areas, you know, where they have knowledge, but they have also capacities, is very instrumental to stabilizing, you know, this region. So this is why we have been fighting for a long time to say, even though most of the communities are in conflict situations, we need really to continue to invest on women activities. We need to create conditions for revenue and job creation activities for women particularly, and because they have more power to convince their husband, to convince also their son, and just not to get in this situation that we are having. And also, this is a way of protecting the environment that have been very instrumental in creating conditions that we are actually facing in the Sahel countries particularly. So economic empowerment is really a critical area where governments should invest, not only in a very intelligent way, but also in a very equitable way. Because if you look at what is happening, the resources that are dedicated to reconciliation, most of the cases goes to those who are vocal, but not doing the work at the ground level. So this is also another problem in the governance of women organizations, mainly in conflict areas. Those who have a voice, located in the capital cities, but also in the big cities where the conflicts are happening, are those who are not, at front line in the economic stability of a community that are facing the consequences of this conflict. So this is something that is very important. Education linked to how not to forget that it's not education just to talk about peace building. This is the theoretical way of doing it, but creating economic conditions for women just to create jobs, to create also wealth, is something that is very instrumental in creating better conditions for peace building in these regions.
Mr. Goita, I'd want to ask, do you think the economic empowerment of women can pave a way for women to be at the decision-making table? That is, to be at places where discussions about peace, security are made? Or do you think that the cultural aspects that we are facing now would still persist, even if women are economically empowered?
But those who are organized around economic issues are those also who have access usually now to these areas, these arenas. But the cultural dimension will still be a key challenge to sort out. But those women who are organized in cooperatives, they are organized in different groups, but also contributing to the economic development, are more likely to be considered, the voice to be heard in the community, so that they can be part of a political side of it. For me, it's very important to develop, because this is an entry point that has been forgotten for a long time. If women, even though you give them space, but they don't have this economic stability just to create conditions for their own families, but also for the community, it will be a very low voice. So economic empowerment is one of the most relevant ways today for me to give space, political arena, space to women to talk about peace building and the like. Despite the constraint, I'm sure that if they are organized in different groups and they are creating these conditions for economic development, they will be heard by people, because this is the reason why also they have to pay their own by the organization, the meetings and discussing also with their husband and the children and the kids, so that they can be part of the peace building process. So yes, economic empowerment is a very relevant and critical strategy just for women to access to be heard, or especially where their voice can be heard by the political decision makers.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Goita. Now, across West Africa, like we've stated throughout the conversation, from conflict-affected communities in the Sahel to countries emerging from authoritarian rule, women continue to shoulder the burden of building or rebuilding societies. Nearly a decade after the end of former President Yahya Jammeh's rule in the Gambia, women continue advocating for truth, justice, and accountability, while also helping communities heal from years of abuse. Their journey demonstrates that peace is not only about ending violence, but also about restoring dignity, justice, and truth. Here is a report by our correspondent, Rose Samara Cates.
Never again! Never again! Never again! Never again! Never again! Never
again! For 22 years, the Gambia lived under a reign marked by arbitrary arrest, enforced disappearance, torture, and extrajudicial killings. Whilst many of the victims were political opponents and security officers, women often carried the hidden burden of the dictatorship. Many suffered alleged sexual and gender-based violence. Others lost husbands, fathers, and sons, forcing them to become the sole provider of their families while caring for loved ones traumatized by the violence. Jara Suare knows that burden all too well. She survived a brutal beating while her brother was shot, a tragedy that still haunts her family today.
I was beaten, arrested, but I forgot about all those things when I had my brother was shot half dead. I forgot everything that happened to me. So I just focused on my brother. From April 10, that Monday, we were in the hospital. There was a time, if you see me, you will pity me, you will think something is wrong with me because the pressure is too much on me and there was nobody to help. Everyone is so scared to help you because they will be easily identified.
For many families, the pain did not end with the violence itself. Children abandoned their education, households slipped into poverty, and many relatives struggled to accept that their loved ones would never return. Mariama Fataja says her father's disappearance forced her to leave school, while her mother still keeps his clothes, hoping that one day he will walk back through the door.
It has been hard. I had to leave school when I graduated at senior because I have so many siblings that now it's my mom that has to be the breadwinner of 9 kids. So when I graduated from senior school, I couldn't further my education. I left school, having to give opportunity to my siblings for them to at least to have a certificate maybe for grade 9 or grade 12. The disappearance of my dad has affected me. Coming to my mom, she hasn't moved on. It's been 9 years now. My mom still has my dad's clothes ironed in her wardrobe. Like my dad has traveled, he will come back. That is how it feels for her.
Fear also isolated victims. Many families were abandoned by neighbors who were too frightened to be associated with them. Awanjai, whose husband was killed during Jammeh's era, says she had no choice but to become both mother and father to her child.
I buy and sell and pay my rent, survive. That is breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if there is anything. That is how we survive all the time up to now. My child went up to grade 9, and that is the end of his education. In fact, he is doing just man labor, buying here, selling there. If he sees anything that he could work and get some money, he would do that, and that is how we survive.
When former President Yahya Jammeh left power in 2017, survivors hoped justice would follow. The Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission gave victims a platform to tell their stories, whilst women's groups such as the Women's Association of Victims Empowerment WAVE helped transform years of private suffering into collective action. Priscilla Yaga Cisse, co-founder and senior technical advisor of WAVE, says women have driven much of the country's transitional justice process, yet their needs remain insufficiently addressed.
It's fair to say that women have been recognized. However, the recognition has not been adequate. There's several indicators which point to the fact that women's participation was uneven from the very start, including limited representation in key structures and a tendency not to prioritize women's experience as a distinct category of harm.
She says justice must go beyond financial compensations.
In addition, for justice to be credible, women must move from being witnesses to being leaders in the design and delivery of transitional justice. It is important that when one talks about accountability, credible and timely prosecutions of those most responsible should be enforced at all times. It's important to note that without justice, healing remains incomplete.
Gambian women continue to carry the scars of the past, but their stories are no longer defined by loss alone. Their message is clear. They are no more victims of the past. They are peace builders, advocates, and agents of change, determined to ensure that future generations inherit a country where such abuses can never happen again.
that was a report by Rose Samara Kate in the Gambia. Mr. Goita, the Gambian experience reminds us that peace is not simply the absence of conflict. It also requires justice, accountability, and reconciliation. From your perspective, what role should women play in shaping these national healing processes?
Yeah, women, I think that they can play a big role via the organization, but also individually, how they can contribute. But I think that the key of this game is in the hand of a decision makers. They need to listen to women. So their role will be to draw attention on what happened, to tell the stories so that people can know how deep was the wounds and that have been created by crisis and also by some of the political decisions and so on and so forth. This is the role that they will play to draw this attention.
All right, it seems we are encountering... Okay, go ahead, please.
But for making decisions, to create this condition for reparation, for this support.
Mr. Goita, Mr. Goita, we are encountering some issues with the network. All right, I'll take Henrietta while you try to resolve the issues. Henrietta, the international frameworks such as the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 calls for women's participation in peace and security. In your view, has West Africa made meaningful progress, or is the implementation still falling short?
Okay, I would say that implementation is still falling short because in West Africa, we always believe, I'll just say that we always believe in policies, but committing to such policies is always a very serious, it's a Herculean task. We already have enough policy papers and then international resolutions sitting on shelves. Nothing is being done about it. They're just they're sitting on the shelves in so many of these organizations. And then what is missing is the enforceability of it. We have to go beyond paperwork to enforcing these. Security policies must mandate firm quotas from women's leadership in peacekeeping. And then we'll be looking at military command and National Security Council with real consequences when those quotas are ignored. And then when gender responsive strategies carry legal obligations and financial accountability behind them, inclusion moves from a symbolic gesture made for, we just like, it's more like statue, like a stooge. Our policies are just like statues. Nothing is being done. But then we have to move from that symbolic gesture made for a photograph in an active standard of governance. Make sure everything is implemented, make sure there is accountability, make sure you hold certain people accountable if such things are not done. Africa likes to talk. Africa likes to sit in a 5-star hotel or go to a 7-star hotel in places like Dubai to sit, waste our resources, talk about things that they would never implement. I think we need to shift from that and move to the stage of implementation.
What is making implementation so difficult? Is it the culture? What do you think?
If you ask me, I think corruption is part of it. Culture is part of it, especially that culture of, like I said earlier on, women being seen and not heard. These things have to be ripped off. And then we begin to see women as decision makers. We begin to see women as wise people. We begin to see women as policy makers. Another thing is the dehumanization of a woman. There's this stereotype that comes with women. Certain men feel kind of insecure when they see women. It's also playing out in the Nigerian politics. where a particular senator, Senator Natasha, is always being silenced, despite everything she does. You know, there's also something about inclusion that is lacking in this part of the world, where you have children that are living with disabilities like autism, and then the woman comes and wants to pass a bill on having diagnostic centers and the rest of it, and the bill never saw the light of day. So I think men should come down from their high horses and then listen to women and understand that they were birthed by women, and understand that what a woman sees, what a woman feels, what a woman perceives are way different from theirs. Because for a man, the way they are wired, they are more of the pragmatic kind of people, but a woman is wired in her entirety, not in isolation.
All right, thank you very much, Henrietta. We are about to get to the closing part of the program, but before that, let's get the info check with Francis Boniface, which is focusing on the experiences of women in central Mali at the heart of the Sahel. This episode challenges the narrative that women are only victims of conflict. Through their voices and lived experiences, it highlights their vital role as mediators, conflict prevention actors, and peace builders working to strengthen their communities and foster lasting peace. Let's hear from Francis.
Some stories become so familiar we stop questioning them. Here's one. Women in the Sahel are victims of conflict. You've probably heard that before, and it's true, but only partly. Because beyond the headlines, another story is unfolding, one of mediation, leadership, reconciliation, and resilience. Today on InfoCheck, we ask, are women in the Sahel only victims of conflict? Let's add more parts to a very common story. Conflict has undoubtedly changed the lives of millions of women across the Sahel. Many have lost relatives. Many have become forced to flee their homes. Many continue to face insecurity every day. But focusing only on their suffering tells only half the story. Across the region, women are quietly resolving disputes, rebuilding trust, and helping communities find their way back to peace. In Mali's Segu region, women's leader Fatou Doucouré says peace cannot last if women are left out of the process.
Women must be involved at every stage. I always say that the role of women begins at the start, continues through the process, and remains essential until the very end. If we want sustainable development, women have to be part of it. Without women, even reconciliation and community mobilization cannot truly succeed. Here in our region of Mali, women are extremely active in bringing people together. For example, we have what we call the Mardini. Every Tuesday, women gather and visit one another. We also have the Safenton. Every Thursday, each woman brings a small piece of soap, and together we support one another in turn. That is why mobilizing women is so easy. You rarely see men organizing themselves in the same way.
Fatou's message is not just about representation, it is about experience. Women are often the first to hear about community concerns, the first to notice when tensions begin to rise, and the first to bring neighbors together before disagreements become conflict. That same community role becomes even more important when families are displaced. In Mopti, central Mali, women's organizations have gone beyond advocacy. They help identify vulnerable families, alert authorities, and connect those in need of humanitarian assistance. There we spoke to Fatoumata Menta, the vice president of the Women's Network for Peace in Mopti.
Given the current situation, most women are registered through the Regional Directorate for the Promotion of Women, Children and the Family. At the same time, NGOs also provide support through this system. They work with the Regional Directorate for the Promotion of Women and Children. When families are identified, many women's associations are involved from the very beginning. As a network, supporting displaced people is one of our priorities. Whenever new displaced families arrive, we are with them every step of the way. We immediately raise alerts with the Regional Directorate for Social Development. The families are registered, their needs are addressed, and humanitarian organizations step in to provide food assistance, cash support, and other forms of aid. As a result, Many displaced families receive the support they need, and humanitarian organizations continue working with them throughout the process.
On leur remet les femmes et les enfants, ils s'habillent avec ça avant le soutien de l'État et même des ONG.
Stories like this are becoming increasingly common across the Sahel. They challenge the long-held perception that women are simply victims waiting to be helped. Instead, many are becoming actors in protecting their communities and sustaining peace. For journalist and former UN Radio Mali News Coordinator Mam Diarra Diop, the shift represents one of the region's most important changes.
Before they were seen as victims, before their role has changed, as you said. At the beginning, they were victims. They were suffering all this situation, and then their role has changed. They have become part of the solution, either to make peace or to go on the other sides or to be also leaders, kind of, protecting themselves and their communities and their kids by trying to negotiate with these people. So obviously, yes, their role has changed. We've seen that in Mali when we signed the peace agreement in 2015. We've seen local civil society women joining, the big groups, the political groups, trying to be part of the peace process, raising the voice of other women to be considered. If you don't do that, you will be excluded from everything and your voice won't be heard. So yes, their role are really changing right now. And you would be surprised if you go to these remote areas that you have very strong figures, leading a whole village or a whole community just to survive.
The evidence points in one direction. Women in the Sahel are not only surviving conflict, they're helping prevent it. They're mediating disputes, supporting displaced families, mobilizing communities, and creating the conditions for lasting peace. So are women in the Sahel victims of conflict? Yes, but they are also peace builders, and understanding the region's future means recognizing both realities. I'm Francis Boniface, and this has been InfoCheck. And until next time, remember to always question the narrative, verify the facts, and stay informed.
All right, thank you, Francis Boniface, for the InfoCheck segment. Mr. Goita, I'll bring you in. In many conflict-affected communities, women rebuild local economies through agriculture, trade, and small businesses. How can government better integrate women's economic leadership into national recovery and peace-building strategies?
I think there is a need to have a strong program supporting all these policies that have been voted in the countries. It's not a problem of political decisions in terms of document that we have. But it's the problem of how to materialize, to operationalize all these commitment in policy to make it happen. So this is the key challenge, and there are many reasons for that, because the players who are at front line of implementation of these decisions are really missing the point. Because first, there is a lack of deep analysis of the targets that are really supposed to be benefiting of this, and what kind of area will be more relevant than others, in the different regions. This is one thing. Because if you look at the case of Mali, I've been coordinating all the negotiation of the gender policy of my country more than 14 years ago. And then if you look at what is included in the gender policy, it's a very strong commitment that have been voted by our parliament. It has been also supported by some of the action plan. It has never been implemented in the way that we frame it at that moment. So very critical way, because the players, now this is why I want to come back to what the previous question on that, saying that if you look at the UN institutions, once they have a critical situation about supporting women, they will just go and look for money, but the administrative cost of these resources that are mobilized actually within the UN is completely destabilizing, even the action that have been implemented. So first thing, we need to change the way that the UN is operating in these regions. Even though there are instruments that are there is a governance way of implementing. It's a very critical problem. You look at the government side, you have all the different technical services, at regional level. You get the information from MOPTI, also from SECU and other regions. You have a department in charge of women and children and families. But if you look at the way that some of the support are oriented, you can see that a region that is considered to be more sensitive accessing to resources will be completely missing resources, and other region with no need in that sense. I'm not saying that any region, there are some regions that don't need resources to support the development, but there is, because of regionalism, sometimes for political commitment of women who are engaged in that, they have a stigma of being part of a political party instead of the other one, or being hostile to the authorities and so on and so forth. Because of that, the resources are completely hijacked, by even some of these regional departments, but also by the national ministries. So this is also a reality that we need to highlight. It's not about corruption only, it's only some of the political consideration that is creating problem. So we need to change that there is an issue of equity vis-a-vis these regions, and vis-a-vis also the communities that need to be supported in the way that they want to be supported. Because this also, you cannot bring in a region where people are more likely to be in fishing area just to support for agricultural, or there are pastoralist groups, but you want to put more resources in vegetable growing and so on and so forth. It can be of diversification, but they need to rebuild their assets and to be able to go more deeply. And if you look at some of the NGOs, they are not doing better than the other two players that I've been mentioning also, because the cost of the services is so high that even though they are supporting, but it's peanut. And most of the program for women, they consider it, even the credit system, they said small credit for women. Why small credit for women? How can you give to a woman 10,000 CFA and you want her to get out of poverty? You give the 10,000 and the husband will jump on her saying that she has to buy more meat for the night and so on and so forth. So she cannot go out of that. So women programs are so small in terms of size, is so critical in terms of just getting resources for that we need to change. So this is something also that we have been pleading for, that it's not women that need less money. They need more than men in investing in their own activities who could create the condition for the role that they can play in that. So it's not a problem of instrument. We have enough document, but how to implement them with very relevant programs and projects that are really likely to listen to them first for the targeting of activities and the strategies of implementation, more equity, and also governance, women organizations that are really governed in a way that also those who are really marginalized, because within the group of women, there are those who are also more marginalized than others, how they can access to resources and enough resources to do the work. Otherwise, we'll keep them in a chain, in a trap that is really endless. And we cannot go out of this situation if we don't create conditions for women to get out of poverty and to play this role in terms of mediation, but of preventing, because they are more likely, to be the key player when their considerations of economic consideration are taken into account, and this is not the case today. And any of the players playing the good game in that sense. NGOs, corruption is the same in like the government institutions, but also the cost of intervention, as I mentioned, is so high that there are problems, getting at the heart of the problem. So we are working on the consequences, not on the root causes of the problem. This is why we have this kind of situation. So I will just plead for that, and they need to have a political commitment on that. And Burkina is giving sometimes, the space today to control the way people are investing in the different project and program. It can be sometimes binding and very controversial to some extent, but this is one way of cleaning the mess that have been created by the UN agencies, some of the government services, and also most of the NGOs that have been operating in this region. The case of Mopti is really instrumental. I have a team there. We know what is happening with resources that are mobilized for women. How many people are benefiting from it, and how much to do the development issue.
All right, Mr. Goita, before we run up the show, I just want to ask, we're talking about implementation a lot, but let's look at accountability because of some of these issues that you've mentioned. What practical accountability mechanisms are needed to ensure that these commitments produce real change for women at community level?
Yeah, this is I think that there is an upstream by the government how the instrument, as I mentioned in the case of Burkina Faso, how the instrument can allow to have a kind of accountability mechanism, but also that have very clear indicators for assessment to some extent, and that are known by people and also operationalized. It can be a control system, it can be a monitoring system, it can be also how we take stock of the experiences that have been in the past. So this is the first thing that needs to be done, because it's the role of a government to have regulatory measures for this. Secondly, at the internal level, just to ensure that the women organizations themselves also have this accountability mechanism at a micro level, and how they can control the usage of the resources that are allocated also to the organization, and to ensure that if you don't have impact assessment tools that are included in the different initiatives we want to move forward. And also the duration of a project and the initiative is also about accountability. How can we ask someone with a program supporting women that are coming out of conflict or that are living in conflict areas to have a 3 years project for them? And then that is led by a unity that is to be administratively prepared, technically prepared for the first year of the program. Before even the first resources came on the ground, women also are losing everything that they have because of the administrative things. Secondly, when they start implementing, the third year, the project had to be closed, and then they need to look for jobs. They will spend all their time looking at internet and how they can find jobs. So women programs should not be that short. There should be long-term project and program for 10 years minimum, as I'm fighting for many, many years now, to say that we want to create conditions to impact assessment, and this impact assessment should have necessary tools to assess the accountability of those who are managing the project, managing the resources, implementing it, and those who are also assessing what has been achieved as change in this region. It's only on that this mechanism that is interlinked with the key indicators that will be allowed to assess with a neutral entity controlling the process. Otherwise, we'll just be in the same trap that we have been falling in for a very long time ago.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Goiter. As we've heard throughout today's program, women are often among the first to suffer the consequences of conflict, but they are also among the first to rebuild what conflict destroys, whether mediating conflicts and disputes in Mali, supporting displaced communities in Burkina Faso, rebuilding livelihoods in Nigeria, or advancing justice and reconciliation in the Gambia. Women continue to demonstrate that sustainable peace depends on their leadership. Our sincere thanks to our guests, Henrietta Idashi and Mamadou Goiter, for sharing their valuable insight. We also thank our correspondents in Mali, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, and the Gambia, as well as Francis Boniface for this week's Info Check segment. Thank you for listening to Citizens Hour. I am Veronica Njai. Stay safe.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Your current affairs program, Citizens Hour, is now more inclusive, more educative, and brings you a broader perspective on political and governance matters. This quarter on Citizens Hour, we spotlight issues on democracy, civic education, women and youth participation in governance, and other policy issues. Every Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. and a repeat broadcast at 6 p.m. on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM, Dakar. Also, don't miss our special monthly debate, which comes up every last Saturday of the month on trending political and governance issues in the sub-region. Citizens Hour on West Africa Democracy